personal branding is not meant to be performative. I do not sit in front of you and act as someone that I'm not. Hi friends, welcome back to the Brand Is You podcast with me, Robyn Savage. I am super excited to be having this conversation with you today. We're going to be talking about what personal branding and personal development have in common. And a lot of this conversation is rooted in most of my work, right? I mean, my brand slogan is "The Brand Is You." I talk to you about becoming a version of yourself that is the brand that the world that you want to live in, the world that you want to see, the people that you want to have in that world, the money, the impact, the influence. I talk to you about building a brand and being a brand that helps create more of those things, right? That helps create a world that you want to live in, that you want your children and your children's children to live in. And so the avenue, the superhighway to build the brand that contributes to the world that you want to live in and connects with and attracts the people that you want to work with is really through personal development, working on yourself so that you can show up for that brand, so that you can naturally be that brand. And so I started to study this a little bit. I started to get really curious actually about okay, I am a super personal development geek, super geek. I read too many personal development books. I read half of them and I put them down, let's be honest. I very rarely finish a full book, but I always take what I need and I'm journaling and I'm reflecting and I'm refining and I'm having conversations and I'm processing and I'm healing and I'm really doing the work. And I love it and I love to take breaks from it and I love to just go live and to see what I've learned and in real time and to interact with this new version and iteration of myself as I grow and as I develop. And then I go back to the personal development table and I see and I reflect and I do the whole thing all over again. And it's always really interesting to me when I'm in my body of work, which is helping you build personal brands, showing you how to be the brand that helps you have impact, influence, and create an income, right? And so as I step back into my body of work as this new version of myself, I always notice how the personal development side of things has supported my personal branding work and my client work and my ability to hold more. So I thought this would be a really cool conversation to have to bring to the podcast because I'm willing to bet that if you are building a personal brand, then you are also interested in some element of personal development, whether you know it or not, right? I'm willing to bet that your entrepreneurial visions and your dreams and your goals are really connected to you wanting to be an elevated version of yourself, that you have some established sense of self-awareness, that you sort of know what you want and what you don't want, and that you have these really intentional moments with yourself that say, okay, where are we going? And that is personal development, right? It's the self-awareness. It's the ability and willingness to see yourself for who you are with your heart in your hand and your truth right in front of your eyes. And for you to be able to say, this is who I am now. This is who I want to be. Where can I grow? What can I work on to become more of the version of myself that is the ideal version of me? Or as some coaches, some personal development leaders would say, the higher version of me, right? And so when we step into the branding world, we start to look at the brand, building the brand, the more strategic side of things, right? The more defined, the more punctuated and descriptive and strategic parts of how we want to be perceived in the world, right? What do I want to be known for? I'm going to build a brand that supports that. Okay. How do I want to help people? What's the service that I'm providing? What's my medicine? What's my gift in the world? And how am I going to get that out there? So here's the thing. When we look at personal branding and we know, okay, My personal brand is how I'm perceived by the world around me. And personal development is who I actually am in my heart of hearts. Well, if we want to build authentic personal brands, which we do, okay? So if we want to build authentic personal brands, then the more I work on this version of me, the more I develop myself, the more I allow myself to grow and become the person that I really want to be in this world, the easier it is for me to build, show up for, and have a brand that is an exact representation of who I am. Okay? So what I've seen happen, and actually, let's talk about this for a sec. Okay? This fake it till you make it term, I get it. I actually don't hate it. I think that there's a lot of value in it if we are working towards expanding ourselves. But I also think that it can result in problems. Because what happens if you are this version of yourself over here who is really lacking self-confidence, not an expert in your field yet, working on it, but not there yet. So you've got, self-doubt, apprehensions about the quality of the work that you're able to provide your clients. But this fake it till you make it statement tells you to just show up as the expert. Just show up as if you know. Talk to the world as though you're already doing it. Well, is that true? Is that fair for the person buying your product? Is that a fair and reasonable brand to create, right? Is that the correct interpretation of who you are? We don't want to build false personal brands that we then have to perform for. Okay? Personal branding is not meant to be performative. I do not sit in front of you and act as someone that I'm not. Okay? I sit in front of you as who I am, and I let you choose it or not choose it. I let you perceive me. I let you see the real me. And the personal development work that I do enhances my personal brand, which enhances your perception of me. The more personal development work I do, the more confidence I build, the more self I know of me, the more in touch I am with myself, the more I know where I'm actually at, the more willing I am to change and to do the work and to heal and to grow. The more I can sit in front of you as this really real, really honest, really true version of myself, and then I don't have to perform for my brand. I just get to be this really authentic, genuine version of myself because I'm doing the work in both areas. I'm doing the personal development work to build myself up, and I'm building a personal brand that allows me to be this version of myself very clearly inside that brand, to show up and speak to you, and then you perceive me. This is how the brand works, okay? So in my opinion, if you have a personal brand, your personal development practices should be almost more important. Why? Because I have seen so many examples of people building personal brands that are not representative of their truth, and it results in burnout, fatigue, unsustainable success, burning it down, starting again. It really creates more work in the future because you're trying to build something on a rocky, unstable foundation. The only way you can build a personal brand that feels really good and really honest and really true to who you are is if you know who you are. So it's got to start here, right? It's got to start with personal development. It's got to start with self-reflection. It's got to start with conversations of you. It's got to start with conversations with you and yourself at night to say, hey, what do we want here? Right? What's all of this for? What feels true to us? How would I say that? What's my voice? What does our voice sound like? And these are real conversations that I've had with myself and continuously have with myself to refine my work, to make sure that my personal brand is reflecting the most current, updated version of myself. And because I'm so committed to personal growth, my personal brand is constantly changing. It's constantly being refined to match this new version of myself, this updated identity, right? So as I have this conversation with myself and I say, what do we want right now? Well, then my personal brand can reflect that. My marketing campaigns, my content strategy, my posting schedule, like what are we available for right now? What are we working through? What are the things that are exciting us the most? What do we want the world to know, right? What's on my heart? And how do I want to show up right now? What's my energetic capacity to show up right now? What's going on in my personal life that could potentially impact my personal brand? And how can I bring all of this into one picture, into one frame, so that I can see it all and not compartmentalize my personal development, the work I'm doing on me, and my personal brand, my work, my business, right? My mission, okay? And I think this is important because we can get so sidetracked by work. We can get so pulled into the rat race and how productive we are and the constantly doing more. But personal development, a lot of it isn't an act of doing. A lot of personal development is a state of being. It happens in meditation. It happens on walks with friends. It happens on your therapy calls. It happens on the pages of your journal. It happens when you sit down to talk about something that's bothering you with a friend or a spouse or a parent. It happens in the moments that we allow ourselves to grow, to act differently. Okay? A lot of our habits change when we get really clear on who we are versus who we want to be. And those habits directly impact our personal brand. And so when we take the time to be rather than do, and we shift the work from the business and brand to the self, the I, the truth within, then we are engaging in a type of work that can't not impact the brand. Okay. If I become more confident, there's no way it's not going to help me get better at what I do. It's going to help me self-promote. It's going to help me talk about my skill set. It's going to help me have conversations in my industry and engage and network. It's going to help me respond confidently with my prices to potential clients. Confidence is going to help me show up more consistently so I can build a bigger brand presence. So while I'm over here in a being state saying, hey, are you worthy? Hey, do you feel loved? Hey, do you know that people in the world do want to hire you? And if so, then let's get out there and do it. Or if not, then what's holding you back? What's limiting you, right? What's making you feel this way? And when you can work through that and you can hold yourself to a higher version of yourself and you can get there, then guess what? Who you are when you show up to take the action, when you shift back into a doing energy, all of a sudden you've got a new level of confidence. You're able to talk about your work in a whole new way. You're able to show up consistently because you're not doubting yourself. So we have these really direct correlations, these really, really important pieces of personal development and personal branding that are so connected that we actually just, I can't deny it, So there's this joke in my family. My family will always say oh, mom's working again. I'm like, I'm not working. I'm pulling tarot cards. This is not me working. I'm clearly in the middle of a spiritual ritual. Thank you very much. And then from pulling my tarot cards, I'll start to journal. And they'll be like, oh, mom's just over there working. I'm like, I'm not working. I'm journaling. And over time, it started to annoy me because it's like, guys, hello, 2 daughters, husband, stop screaming at me for working. I'm having a nice moment with myself. And over time, I was like, this is such a big part of my work, actually. If I'm really honest with myself, then the connection between my tarot card reading that I did for myself and how I show up in my brand are directly related. And the journal entry that I just wrote is probably going to influence an Instagram post later. And the thing that I just realized over here is directly going to change the way that I speak to people on my podcast. And so over time, I really started to understand that yes, there are things that I do that are just for me. They are sacred and they are for my spirit and they will never get shared. And those things are private. Okay. But in a lot of ways, the work that I do behind the scenes in those private rooms has a direct impact on the way that I serve you, on the woman that I am for you, on the leader that I can be for you. It expands my capacity to have more influence. It expands my ability to lead larger amounts of people. It helps me manage more money and to claim more responsibility as a grown-ass woman. So there's a way for you to recognize like, hey, I am doing this for me, and this is a self thing. I'm having a bath and I'm going to light this candle. I'm going to meditate and listen to music. And that is a thing that is for me. But I think that if we're really honest with ourselves and we just allow ourselves to see it, then it becomes really clear that that bath is also going to change the way that you work later that day. Or it's going to teach you something or give you a download that's going to directly impact your work. So the lines get blurry, right? Like the lines between who you are and the work that you're doing become pretty blurry. And I think that this is where it becomes really important to recognize the difference between I'm doing this for myself, I'm taking these moments for myself. I'm shutting down work mode. I'm closing my computer. I'm logging out of Instagram. I'm shutting down the apps and I'm doing this work for me so that you can create that sacred container for yourself so that you can have your own experience and your own process that is not for work. And I also want to encourage you to go back to that work as the entrepreneur, as the personal brand, and say, how is what I'm learning about myself directly impacting the work that I'm doing in this world? Okay? Because you will start to be able to connect the dots. And vice versa, you can notice how you're showing up in your personal brand. You can notice what your own limitations are in work. You can notice how you're holding yourself back. You can notice your self-sabotaging patterns in your brand. And then you can take those awarenesses over to your sacred space, over to your bath, over to those moments when your computer is closed and the apps are shut down, your notifications are turned off, and you can say, hey, I'm noticing you're self-sabotaging your own growth. I'm noticing that you're lacking confidence when you go live, or that you're holding yourself back when it comes to selling your high-level offers. Like, let's look at that. And you can take it into this sacred space and do the personal development work and really sit with it and do the healing that's involved and talk to people and process it. And then that will naturally spill back over into your personal brand. And so I feel this perpetual cycle. I feel this rising and evolving as a woman, and then integrating that next level version of myself, that grown and expanded and more aware version of myself back into my work. And then, you know, the cycle repeats itself and repeats itself and repeats itself. And this is one of the reasons why branding is never done, right? Personal branding is not a destination. It's an ongoing process. And I think that this is an important mindset to have when you begin to build your personal brand, or, you know, whether you're at the idea phase or you're just starting out, or you're a year in or 10 years in, it's never going to stop. Right? Your personal brand is never going to stop changing as long as you continue to do your work in this world, because you will continually become a newer, updated, revised, grown, expanded, different version of yourself. So how could your brand not change? I really think the only way your personal brand stays the same forever is if you do not see if you do not witness yourself changing and growing and evolving. And that's just not the way in my world. Because if the brand is you, then you've got to know yourself. If the brand is you, then you've got to be willing to see yourself. You've got to be willing to reflect. You've got to be willing to have the hard conversations with yourself, with your hand to your heart and your mind open, right? Willing to see. And over time, just like me, when your family is like, are you working or are you playing? Or are you mom? Like it sort of blends into this one beautiful experience of your lifetime, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be two separate things, what you do for work and who you are as a person, but you can have privacy and you can keep things sacred and you can take time to close that down and to live for yourself entirely and freely and not post things and not share stories. But my hypothesis here is that the more work you do on personal development, the more work you do knowing and loving yourself, the bigger your personal brand is going to expand. So what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Do you see a direct correlation for this in your own life? Do you notice that every time you change and grow, your personal brand changes and grows with you? Do you resist it or do you welcome it, right? Do you let that change happen naturally? Do you force it? I don't know. I'm curious, and I would really invite you to sit with this for yourself, because I really do believe that a certain version of your personal brand may only last a minute. It may last just as long. It may only last as long as it takes you to find the next answer or to see something differently or to reframe a thought. Okay? And so I think it's really going to serve you if you start to look at your personal brand as the constant changing reflection of who you are every day and allowing that process to happen naturally, not trying to resist it, not trying to stay the same, but really allowing your brand to represent the most recent, updated version of yourself as you move through your personal development journey. If you loved this episode, if this landed with you, if this brought up questions for you, please let us know. Email team@robynsavage.com. I know how big some of these concepts are, and I hope that they stir up thoughts in you and questions. So email us to let us know if you have any questions. If you're listening to the podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify, go ahead and download this episode so that you can re-listen to it again and again and stay updated in your personal development work and personal brand, and trigger this thought pattern again for yourself. Oh yeah, are the two in alignment? Am I doing the work here so that I can show up differently there? Okay, so download the episode and come back to this. And if you're watching on YouTube, why not subscribe? Hello! Subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any of our podcast episodes. Go check out the shorts. There's such good tidbits of information. And I'll see you when I see you.